My name is Colleen. Lying in this hospital bed, the quiet hum of the machines fills the air, and a sliver of light seeps through the cracked door. I can hear two voices in the hallway, and my blood runs cold as I recognize them. Are you sure she took it? It's Mrs. Thompson's voice, low and cautious. There's a brief pause, and then her daughter, Lily, replies with a tone that sounds almost like relief. Relax. By tomorrow morning, everything will be ours. I lie perfectly still, my heart pounding in my chest. Memories flood back, and I start to piece together what has happened. 3 weeks ago, we had a family dinner to celebrate my husband, Ethan's, promotion. Mrs. Thompson cooked, which was very unusual for her, and she proudly brought out a bottle of wine she claimed had been saved for a special occasion. Lily poured my glass with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I remember the soup being overly salty. I remember Ethan laughing at something his father said. And then, the room started to spin. My fork slipped from my fingers, and the chandelier above the table blurred into a long gold streak before everything went black. When I woke up here, my head throbbed, and my mouth tasted like metal. I had no clear memory of how I'd gotten to the hospital, just fragments of sirens, Ethan's voice shouting my name, and a paramedic asking what I'd eaten. Now, as I lie here, I think about the strange events leading up to this. Ethan's family comes from old money, but their fortune has been dwindling. Their grand mansion in the suburbs still has an air of elegance, with beautiful antiques and expensive paintings on the walls. However, I've noticed little signs of financial strain, like the leaky roof that hasn't been fixed and the fact that they've stopped hosting large parties. I met Ethan when I was in my late 20s. I was busy building my own real estate development company, Thompson Reed Enterprises. I'd started it from scratch, renovating and selling high-end properties along the coast. By the time we got married, my company was bringing in more money in a single deal than his family's trust distributed in a year. At first, when I met Mrs. Thompson, she shook my hand a bit too long. I didn't think much of it then. I was in love with Ethan and focused on my business. But as time passed, I realized she was sizing me up. The trouble began subtly. Mrs. Thompson would ask, in a seemingly sweet way, if Ethan and I had talked about our future. She was clearly referring to wills and trusts, and what would happen to my assets if something were to happen to me. At first, I thought she was just an overprotective mother. Then, Lily started showing up at our house more often. She always had an excuse, and she'd linger near my home office, where I kept important legal documents in a drawer I thought was locked. One evening, I came home early and found her standing in my office with the drawer open. She said she was looking for a phone charger, but we both knew that was a lie. Instead of confronting her, I called my attorney, a sharp and calm woman named Rachel Davis. She had handled my father's estate when he passed away. I told her what I'd seen, and she wasn't surprised. Colleen, she said, people don't rummage through a drawer for a phone charger. They do it because they want to know what's in your will. Over the next few weeks, Rachel and I quietly worked on a plan. I didn't tell Ethan about it, not because I didn't trust him, but because I needed to have at least one truth that his family couldn't manipulate. Rachel drew up a new set of documents, a restructured trust, and a clause that would freeze all our shared assets and direct my personal holdings to a place where the Thompsons could never access them if something unexpected happened to me. I signed the papers on a Wednesday and told no one. I just had a gut feeling that I might need them. Now, here in the hospital, as I hear those voices in the hallway, I reach for my phone on the nightstand. My fingers are trembling, but I type a single message to Rachel, execute the plan. I hit send without hesitation and then place the phone on my chest, waiting to see who will enter the room first. It takes almost 10 minutes before a nurse comes in to check my vitals, and Ethan follows closely behind. His face is pale and full of worry. I study him carefully, looking for any sign of guilt, but all I see is exhaustion and confusion. He takes my hand and asks if I remember anything. I tell him no, which isn't entirely a lie. I remember everything that matters, I just can't tell him yet. An hour later, the doctor comes in with a toxicology report. It confirms my suspicions. There are trace levels of a sedative in my bloodstream, far more than I would have taken on my own, mixed with something that could interact badly with a mild heart condition I'd told only 3 people about when I worked on my estate plan with Rachel. Mrs. Thompson was one of them. She'd asked me years ago with what seemed like genuine concern if I had any health issues the family should know about. I'd answered honestly because I trusted her. I asked the doctor to step outside and call Rachel directly, bypassing Ethan and the hospital's family liaison. I also make sure the toxicology results are documented and timestamped before anyone outside the medical staff can access them. The doctor looks at me a bit oddly, but she does as I ask. I've learned that people in a private hospital room are more likely to be believed when they make requests calmly. By the time Rachel arrives that evening, she already has what she needs. The message I sent her was a trigger phrase we'd agreed on weeks ago, the day I caught Lily in my office. As soon as she received it, she filed the restructured trust documents with the court, froze the joint accounts related to the Thompsons' assets, and retrieved records from my home security system. Mrs. Thompson had once joked that the security system was overkill for a house in such a safe neighborhood, but it turned out to be my saving grace. The kitchen camera had captured Lily adding something from a small vial into the wine bottle 2 hours before dinner, with Mrs. Thompson standing beside her, watching and not stopping her. When Ethan found out, he was silent. His quietness scared me more than if he had shouted. He drove straight to his mother's house with the footage Rachel had and a copy on his phone. I wasn't there for that conversation, but he told me later that his mother didn't deny it. She said the money was supposed to stay in the family, that I'd married into something bigger than myself, and that she'd done what any mother would do to protect her children's inheritance. Lily cried and called it a mistake, an overreaction, and a misunderstanding about the dosage. Neither of them apologized to me directly. The legal process moved faster than I expected. The evidence was clear, and attempted poisoning charges were filed within the week. Mrs. Thompson's lawyer tried to argue that she had diminished capacity due to the family's financial decline, but it didn't work. Lily took a plea deal that kept her out of the courtroom but still landed her a sentence. After months of delays, Mrs. Thompson was convicted on lesser charges that still had real consequences. The Thompson name, which I'd thought represented stability when I married into the family, ended up in the newspapers for all the wrong reasons. Ethan and I stayed together, but it wasn't easy. There were nights when he couldn't look at me without seeing his mother's face, and nights when I couldn't look at him without wondering how much he'd really known. We went to therapy, first separately and then together. Slowly, we rebuilt our relationship, making it independent of his family's approval and their money. I kept the restructured trust exactly as it was. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was proof that I'd seen the danger before anyone else believed me and that I'd protected myself before I needed rescuing. I think about that hospital room more often than I'd like to admit. The near miss makes me realize that the people who seem the happiest about your success might be the ones waiting for it to be theirs. I've also learned that being prepared isn't paranoia, it's about respecting the part of yourself that might need evidence one day. If this story has drawn you in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because stories like this, where real people stand up for themselves against those closest to them, are what this channel is all about. There are more coming every week, and you won't want to miss the next one.